Moving now to education news, a bill passed by Louisiana's lawmakers in 2010 has this year's teachers focusing even more on their students' standardized test scores.
Southern Education Desk reporter Sue Lincoln explains why teachers have so much riding on the success of their students.
Teacher evaluations aren't new in Louisiana. Since 2000, state law has required principals to conduct them every 3 years.
Many teachers complained that these evaluations were very subjective, that principals tended to have favorites, and that they really didn't get a meaningful evaluation.
Bridget Neeland is the vice president of the Louisiana Association of Business and Industry, which helped push the bill known as Act 54 through the 2010 legislature.
It ties student achievement to teacher evaluations, which now must be conducted on an annual basis.
It was part of the state's competition for federal Race to the Top funding, which Louisiana failed to win. It's a pilot project, and this year all public school teachers will be held accountable for their student scores on standardized tests. It's called value-added assessment and will be 50% of the teacher's grade.
And the evaluation system will say a teacher is effective, mildly effective, or not effective. And they have 3 years to improve before any kind of action is taken, any kind of consequences whatsoever.
But Louisiana Federation of Teachers President Steve Monahan says this doesn't assure fairness for all teachers.
2/3 right now of the teachers in the state are not affected by the 50% because they're not in the tested areas.
For example, there are no standardized tests for literature courses and creative writing electives.
What will be the instrument for art? What will be the instrument for music? You know, the physical education teacher, it may not be the teacher that you can measure, right? But that physical may be the one who stops and talks to you in the hallway that certain day and changes your life.
Neeland says the State Department of Education's psychometrics chief, LSU psychology professor Dr. George Noel, believes standardized testing for art, music, and even PE can be created.
Dr. Noel, I've heard in a presentation, say that you actually can create a value-added model for just about every subject, every grade.
Louisiana Association of Educators President Joyce Haynes says the Department of Education has been asking teachers to help.
They proposed having these teachers write their own standardized tests. Where will you get your validity and your reliability and all that comes with the standardized tests? And if you make those standardized tests now, when you don't even have your your standards and everything ready, will these tests be valid?
Both teachers' unions say the value-added model has other serious flaws that have not been addressed. For example, it looks at each student's test scores for the 2 previous years, then projects a target score for this year's teacher to help that student achieve.
Johnny was supposed to grow by 2 grades this year. He only did 1 3/4 grades. So therefore, you didn't meet the target. Therefore, you're not as good as you thought you were.
Monahan says there are too many things outside the classroom, outside the teacher's control, that can impact a child's performance on a test. Neeland, who serves on the advisory council for this project, says allowance is made for those situations.
They've looked at a number of indicators, including high-stress situations like loss of a job in a family or even the loss of life in a family. And they're taking all of those kinds of things into consideration.
Haynes says Louisiana is going too far in trying to measure a subjective experience, learning, with objective mathematics.
I think we're turning it into an absolute pass or fail for both the students and the teachers.
Monahan says the state is spending money unwisely and neglecting to teach critical thinking skills.
We're spending literally hundreds of millions of dollars on testing, right? It's essentially a multiple guess test. We're telling a whole generation that everything really boils down to the ability to recognize an answer amongst choices given on questions asked.
But Neeland says Law B is confident this teacher evaluation system will prove effective and therefore a wise use of state education dollars.
I think that an argument can be made that there's probably no better use of state dollars than in determining if a student is actually learning in a classroom.
Louisiana's lawmakers will be evaluating the results of this pilot project in the spring legislative session and decide then whether to extend the pilot project or make these evaluations a permanent part of state education law. For the Southern Education Desk, I'm Sue Lincoln.
Now, the Advisory Committee on Educator Evaluations has a January 25th deadline for submitting the final report on this pilot project to Louisiana's House and Senate Education Committees. Both teachers' unions say they'll be working next session to scrap permanent implementation of this evaluation system.
The Southern Education Desk is a partnership among public radio and television stations across the Gulf South, covering the education issues from kindergarten through 12th grade and higher ed. For more information, log on to southern-educationdesk.org.